Just finished my first playthrough of Resident Evil 2. I've never played the original. I've only played the remaster, which came out in January 2019. So I don't really have anything to compare it to say, oh, it did this better or worse than the other. All I can do is rate the game on its own merit. I loved this game, and I should point out that I played with Leon Kennedy first. I will be going back and playing through the story again with Claire Redfield. I suspect my impressions on the game, what I'm going to talk to you about, giving it a review, probably won't change too much between the two. I understand that there are some different story elements. I noticed there were some things in the game that I was not able to access that I assume are only available with Claire. So there might be a slightly different path on how both characters get to the resolution of the story. That doesn't really impact my overall impressions, though. And if there are any significant changes that really changed gameplay, I will come back later on and give you guys a final review of the game, because I do understand there is the second run mode, which is what I'm going to be getting into here very shortly. But I wanted to go over some high-level thoughts that I had. I will not be giving away any spoilers. This game is gorgeous. Now, I'm playing it on a computer, so of course the graphics and the frame rate are going to look top-notch. My monitor does not support HDR, but it is an ultra-wide, and thankfully Resident Evil 2 supports ultra-wide, and wow, even without HDR, it still looked phenomenal. There are a lot of places in this game where you're only going to have your trusty flashlight and your sound to kind of navigate through these murky and smoky and eerie environments. And it just looked so incredible. Running at a great frame rate on my 2080 Ti. I have no doubt if you played this on a console, whether it's your PlayStation 4 or your Xbox One, it's probably going to look pretty good. I suspect it'll look even better with HDR, but even without it, wow. These are some of the prettiest graphics I really have played in really any game, honestly. I think it's a showcase for what horror games can really be like. I also really liked the puzzle solving in this game, and Resident Evil has always been notorious for these phenomenal puzzles. The reason I use the word notorious is because they are a bit abstract at times. Not along the lines of The Witness or anything like that, some of those other really goofy puzzle games. I mean in the fact that these mansions or police stations or wherever you happen to be, very, very like Rube Goldberg-like. So I have no idea how people could honestly function in this place outside of this mystery that you're trying to solve, with all of these secret levers and puzzles and flips and switches and how they would navigate normally. It's like somebody went through in reverse order and locked all these secret doors and hit all the medallions and did all these crazy things to make it as difficult as possible for you to traverse through the environment. Now, I get it. It's in the sake of a game, so I'm just kind of being facetious here. But the puzzle solving is phenomenal. Finding things and slowly uncovering portions of the map, finding hidden clues and notes to unlock optional areas to get better weapons and more inventory and bonus items were really, really well put together. You don't necessarily even have to get through everything if you don't want to. There's definitely a golden path, but I find you will definitely be rewarded for exploring and looking around, and you will find and be much more powerful leading into some of the later parts of the game if you take your time. That really has a lot to do with the map design. The map is one of the most ingenious map designs I have seen. The map will, when you first uncover a room, it will appear red. And if you walk by things, they'll automatically be populated on your map. A case of bullets from first aid spray. A lock you can't break yet. And then it'll say like it's a cipher lock or it's a password, whatever it is. And it'll show you doors that are red, which means you can't get in yet. Why can't you get in? Are they locked? Are they barred? Do they require a key? If they require a key, what kind is it? Or they'll be blue. Which blue means you can just walk right through. The map design was, I feel like, what Apex did to the pinging system, this game does to map design. I'll never look at another game without this design the same way again. I loved it. It worked so well. It rewarded you for exploring, but it wasn't hand-holding. And I think that's a really important distinction. Lastly, by far, to me, the coolest thing, and also the creepiest thing, was Tyrant. He's commonly referred to as Mr. X. At a certain point in the story, you're going to start getting chased by this guy who cannot be destroyed. He will follow you, and you will hear him clomping around. He's got this, kind of reminds you of like Colossus from the X-Men, this giant metal kind of looking dude who just stomps and clobbers through the police station as you're trying to continue your adventure. So while you're tossing rooms and fighting off regular fodder of the enemies that you're going to encounter in the game, you have to worry about this guy chasing you. And it's such a creepy, cool mechanic. Just when you think this guy can't find you, he finds you. He will run you down. Sometimes that requires you to kind of do figure eights around him to kind of navigate around. Sometimes you go to a dead end and you have no choice but to turn around and fight him to basically break out. When you fight him, you just do enough damage where he falls down on one knee and kind of recovers, and that's when you make your escape. But it was such a cool mechanic. I loved it, and it was just something so different than anything I've really played before. I guess I could relate it to Outlast a little bit in the sense where you're kind of navigating through and there's this creepy monster, kind of looking around for you. The difference is this guy's coming. He's loud, he's abrasive, he busts and kicks through doors. He doesn't stop, and he's relentless through most of the game, and it was really, really cool to experience that. I give it a plus and minus here as I start to shift into a few of the negatives with the dialogue. I get it. Resident Evil games are kind of campy. Don't think they're meant to be, but it kind of just works out that way, where the dialogue is kind of corny. I think back to the original Resident Evil when Barry gives Jill the lockpick and he goes, "Jill, this is for you, the master of unlocking." Thanks, Barry. It's just really kind of like cringy dialogue. This game, at least the acting is good. I mean, the words that they're saying, how they're talking, the inflection is right. It's not, over the top like, "Where do we go? I don't know." Like, they got rid of that. But what they're saying is still kind of goofy, but I get it. It goes with the charm of the game. For some reason, you're like in a police station. You're like, let's get help. I mean, as zombies are pouring through and this giant monster's chasing you, I guess you think, oh, if I could turn on the radio and call for help, we'll be okay. Meanwhile, the entire police station and most of the town is dead and on fire. But for some reason, you have this just like Boy Scout charm about you, this enthusiasm that you're going to save the day. It is kind of funny that when you break apart from just how goofy the game is, as I mentioned, with that weird exploration mode where you have to find like medallions to open doors and there's all these weird locks and everything. You just kind of think like, oh, I'll just finish navigating this creepy house and then we'll get the heck out of here. It is a little bizarre. A couple of negatives, though, that were legitimate negatives that I wouldn't say ruin the game by any stretch of the imagination, but were definitely worth pointing out. The first was that the game does use that typewriter system, so most of your save points will be at very specific points in the game where you have to use a typewriter. There are a few instances, depending on if you do something significant, where you will unlock a quick save by opening a door or getting to a new area of the game. Sometimes you'll get a quick save, so even if you die, you'll just jump back there instead of the typewriter. Now, the old games had that typewriter system, which was incredibly frustrating because you had a limited number of saves. This game gets rid of that. You could save as many times as you want. You don't have to use ribbons to save your progress. You could just, do a little bit and save, and it's not a problem. The problem is when you do something that does seem significant and you die. Sometimes the game doesn't put quick save points where you think that they should, and it will send you back to a random spot. These autosaves just aren't good. And you'll end up redoing things 10, 15 minutes just to get back to the part that you were before, and it's not really a lot of value added. So I thought that was a negative. And the other negative is that the damage indicators on a lot of enemies are very difficult to tell how close they are to dying, and damage never really seemed consistent in general. I don't want health bars, I don't want damage indicators, I don't want any of that sort of thing. But the game does a phenomenal job of implementing lots of detailed graphics, and for some reason they kind of left that portion out on enemies. So like if you're shooting a zombie in the head, their head will be totally bloody, but it's the exact same shape. It's not like pieces are missing. It just looked the same. They just look like they have like red spray paint on them. Does that mean they're one shot away from death or 20? Well, you don't really know. And then you get lucky every so often. You'll pop off a headshot and their head will explode in a single shot. So, okay, I get it. Some zombies are going to be stronger than others. Some are going to be a little easier to damage than others. I'm okay with that, but I feel like the game could have done a much better job of letting you know just how much damage you were doing to an enemy, or if what you were doing was really actually hurting them. Because a lot of times their animations are canned. So if you're shooting an enemy laying on the ground and you think you're doing damage, I don't know if you are or not. I've emptied an entire clip into a zombie and he just pops right up. And I'm like, I guess I was shooting too fast for the game to register each individual shot as damage. Or maybe they're just really that tough. I'm not really sure, but I would have liked to see a little bit more visual indications that you are actually hurting an enemy towards the last part of the game when you get a flamethrower, at least on Leon's walkthrough, or playthrough rather. You get this flamethrower, and I mean, you could empty 400 fuel, which is the entire length, on an enemy, and they're on flames, and they're still walking, and I'm like, I don't understand, like, I feel like my gun bullets or my flame or whatever isn't being really registered. So those are some negatives I think that you have to be mindful of. You know, you have to play cautiously and, you know, shoot an enemy and then just kind of wait like 5 or 10 seconds, see what they do, see if they still advance, see if they fall over. And if they fall over, just wait about 10 seconds, see if they get back up. I know that adds to the horror element of it and that survival piece of it, which I truly enjoy. But I think if you do those two things, you really can mitigate a lot of the negatives in this game. And then you could just get back to the positives, which were absolutely just phenomenal. So I highly recommend this game. I'm really, really excited to start playing through with Claire to see just how different the story is. I definitely recommend this game. If you have not yet played Resident Evil games at all, if you totally have no idea what's going on in the franchise, this is the gold standard for sure in the series. I do think Resident Evil 7 is a phenomenal choice as well, but this game just looks and feels so good. The puzzle elements were phenomenal. The jump scares were phenomenal. The enemy design, the level design, the pacing, the playthrough, everything just beautiful. And I think this goes to show that when a game is in a reframing state, whether they're going to remaster, reimagine it, or whatever they're going to do, I think this now sets that standard where you can take an existing story, add some more modern gameplay elements to it, not even up-res, just rebuild everything, add in beautiful, beautiful graphics, great soundtrack, and I think you could take an old experience and really make it better. I think a lot of these other remasters that we see are really cashed in, but this game definitely was made by people who are true fans of the game. You can definitely see their passion oozing in every single frame. Highly recommend this title. The name of the game, Resident Evil 2. I hope you guys found this review informative. Please leave a comment below. Give me your thoughts on the Resident Evil franchise and, more importantly, what you thought of this playthrough. And yeah, I think that'll wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.